You had conservatives talking about how they had their children watching the opening ceremonies and didn't know that's what they were going to see. And I saw some of the dancing. I'm an adult. I saw some of the dancing that was going out there. I saw somebody, just because you paint somebody in blue don't mean they ain't naked. That person that was in blue was naked. Am I lying? Yep. Am I lying? Yep. Let me transition to another subject involving the Olympics, please, and that would be the opening ceremony that took place this past Friday.
Okay.
Opening ceremony of the Paris Olympic Games. That's what I'm talking about here. To some people, it was spectacular. To others, not so much. The 4-hour telecast featured Olympic athletes making their entrances on boats that floated along the River Seine. In between the entrances, one group of performers sparked controversies amongst Christians worldwide. A group of drag queens and dancers were pictured sitting at a long table in an image that some believed resembled Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper.
Quick point of correction. It wasn't just Christians that had an issue with this from a religious perspective. So did Muslims, because they honor Jesus Christ. But you know who else had an issue with this? Atheists as well as agnostic people, because they stepped outside of the Christian references here and said, wait a minute, why are they using children within this drag queen shit? I call out Christians and atheists, but it was really any other religion, really. But these people, they're beginning to see what happens when you don't challenge what is status quo within mainstream.
The portrait of Jesus Christ and his 12 apostles. Some called the imagery insulting and a mockery.
Look at this.
To the Christian faith. This is the official page of the Olympic Games saying the interpretation of the Greek god Dionysus makes us aware of the absurdity of violence between human beings. That's the official Olympic Games page, okay? That's what they said. But needless to say, House Speaker Mike Johnson had his own interpretation, and he posted this on X Saturday. Quote, last night's mockery of the Last Supper was shocking and insulting to Christian people around the world who watched the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. The war on our faith and traditional values knows no bounds today.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
But we know that truth and virtue will always prevail, end quote. The post ends with the scripture from John chapter 1, verse 5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it, end quote. Look, there's a lot of backlash, as you can imagine. It was swift from the artist who created the scene and from an Olympic spokesperson and the camps. Here's the statement she issued following the controversy. Quote, clearly there was never an intention to show disrespect to any religious group. On the contrary, we really did try to celebrate community tolerance. Looking at the result of the polls that we shared, we believe that this ambition was achieved. If people have taken any offense, we are, of course, really, really sorry. You should be sorry. You should be sorry. And let me tell you why you should be sorry. Because you should have made that intent clear before it happened. You should have made sure it wasn't depicting the Last Supper. You should have made sure nobody had the ammunition to say that it was. You should have made sure that in the process of all of that going on, that you highlighted exactly what it was supposed to be. Because, see, I got my own research here, okay? And I'm just reading. I got a one sheet right here in front of me. And I'm just reading from some of this stuff here. Obviously, it provoked outrage by religious conservatives around the world. According to them, and they're talking about all of this stuff. I want to remind y'all, drag artists, dancers, and others flanked Butch on both sides. Who is Butch? They're talking about DJ and producer Barbara Butch, an LGBTQ plus icon who calls herself, quote unquote, the love activist. Butch was wearing a silver headdress that looked like a halo as she got the party going on a footbridge across the Seine. Drag artists, dancers, and others flanked her on both sides. This is according to a CBS News correspondent by the name of Elaine Cobb reporting the specific part of the ceremony that caused the offense. She says was in fact a scene depicting Dionysus, the Greek god of wine. It was reportedly based on The Feast of the Gods, a 17th century painting by Dutch artist Jan Hermans van Bilgert that hangs in the Magnan Museum in Dijon, Eastern France. The painting depicts an assembly of Greek gods on Mount Olympus for a banquet to celebrate the marriage of Thetis and Peleus. The figure seated at the table in the center has a halo of light behind his head. Thomas Jolly, the opening ceremony director, insisted in an interview with France's BFM TV that, quote, the Last Supper was not the inspiration behind the scene, explaining that Dionysus arrives at the table because he is the Greek god of celebration, adding that the particular sequence was entitled Festivity. That's what it said. It also goes on to say Dionysus arrives at the table because he is the Greek god of celebration. The idea was to create a big pagan party in link with the god of Mount Olympus, and you will never find in me or in my work any desire of mocking anyone. My wish isn't to be subversive, nor to mock or to shock. Most of all, I wanted to send a message of love, a message of inclusion, and not at all to divide.
It is wild to me that this guy is still lying to this degree. Any desire of mocking anybody. Please, somebody explain to me how this is not mocking. Like, let's say that it's not mocking Christianity for the sake. I think that it is. I still think that it is a depiction of the Last Supper. But let's just say, for shits and giggles, that it's not. This is how you pay homage respectfully to Greek mythology, by having a Smurf-colored, orange-haired, dyed weirdo with a flower belt and panties on, singing with a microphone in his hand, with your association of miscreants, including the bearded fellow. It doesn't make any sense. Stop the cap.
So as the late, great Joe Madison from Urban View Radio on Sirius XM channel 126, who passed away a few months ago after a lengthy battle with cancer. God rest his wonderful soul. He's in heaven watching all of us right now. What a good man he was. To steal his phrase, to put it where the goats can get it. What you were really aiming for was for the LGBTQ plus community to be embraced. Fair enough. Got no problems with that. But you do understand, while that appeals to an abundance of people the world over, it also serves to alienate a bunch of folks the world over.
Yeah, and the majority of people that are going to pride parades are not heterosexuals. So trying to bring people together all in the name of inclusivity is bullshit. You're pushing your agenda, your political agenda, your lifestyle agenda, and you're using children. Nasty.
And in America, there's an election that's about to take place. Why you think the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, opened his mouth? So, once again, we can sit up there and see that, and we talked about how the games are supposed to be about the games. And since there's athletes from all over the globe descending upon one venue to compete against one another, one would think that's inclusionary enough. The message of inclusion was sent. But we got to take it to another level, right? Right? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying there's tens of millions of people who will. And why would you want to take that risk when elections are coming up?
Mm-hmm. That's why they want to take the risk.
See, a lot of times in life, we want our cake and we want to eat it too. And what I mean by that is that we want it all at once. My attitude would have been looking at the political landscape, the potential fallout from such a scene and an event, and I would have deduced in my mind how advantageous this is or how problematic it could be. That's just me.
Yeah.
because I want the results that I want. Not just to speak, not just to vent, not just to express myself. I want the results I want. And that's what I think got lost in all of this. Every single word they said, I don't think can be disputed in terms of their intent. So why didn't you tell us beforehand? Surely you must have had an idea that people would have reacted to this. You had conservatives talking about how they had their children watching the opening ceremonies and didn't know that's what they were going to see. And I saw some of the dancing. I'm an adult. I saw some of the dancing that was going out there. I saw somebody, just because you paint somebody in blue don't mean they ain't naked. That person that was in blue was naked. Am I lying? Am I lying?
Nope.
They were naked. There was no warning here. It's not required for the adults. I get that part. But opening ceremony of the Olympics, you know a bunch of people were watching that with their children. And some people don't want their children seeing that. Whether you like it or not, folks have a right to want their children to see and not see what they choose. I don't have a problem. Remember, I'm a conservative with my dollars. I'm a liberal every other way. I'm liberal. I get it. I'm cool. But I know tens of millions of conservatives won't be. And there's an election coming up. And as I was explaining to my man Michael earlier, during a commercial break, when people go to the polls, because I'm here in the United States of America, I don't know what elections are going on elsewhere or when they're scheduled for, but I know in the United States of America it's scheduled for November 5th. And what I'm saying is, I know that when people go to the polls, there's usually one overlapping dominant issue that influences who they vote for. So what if all of a sudden Roe v. Wade, immigration, and the economy suddenly didn't become the priority that religion is? What if folks decided to go to the polls because I either love what I saw or I can't stand what I saw? You ever think about that? I don't think they did. But the conservatives did everywhere. And who knows how they'll react to it. But in closing, one of my boys, who's a staunch Republican, who I made go to the polls and vote for Obama back in 2008, by the way, he always says something to me that I can't escape. He said, liberals, progressives, Democrats. He said, y'all argue, y'all fuss, y'all fight, y'all protest. He said, Republicans, we just go to the polls. We ain't got nothing to say. We roll right up to the polls. That's what he said. And then I remember Cat Williams doing his stand-up. I think this time it was from Jacksonville. And he talked about after Trump won the election in 2016. And he said, you had folks at the polls like they knew something nobody else knew. And they just take one step at a time, like just stepping closer and closer to the polls with a pep in their step because they knew what they were going to do. When it comes to politics, every little thing matters as an election approaches, especially religion. And whether it was their intent or not, a religious outrage was sparked. Only time will tell what kind of effect this truly has on an election. But it's a thought worth thinking about.
I think it's interesting that all of these things are happening in succession right before an election. Just like Stephen said, I believe that this was premeditated because of how important the next president of the United States will have on the entire world. But Stephen kept referring to that it's conservatives that's going to have an issue with all of this. And I think no. I think that there's a lot of liberal voters that are taking a look at what that display was, and they're like, okay, now this is getting a bit too much. I want to share a picture with you guys that Elon Musk shared on his Twitter. This was back in 2022. Back in 2008, and as Stephen A. Smith was saying, back when he forced his Republican friend to vote for Obama, my fellow liberal, me as an Elon Musk, and then the center, conservative. 2012, me, Elon Musk, my fellow liberal, question mark, running way to the left. Conservative there. You can also see the difference between a happy face here to an apathetic face here. Then in 2021, now me with the look of surprise on his face that hasn't moved the entire time, by the way. But then what has happened? The center is now stretched to where now he's considered conservative because of all of the wokies, the progressives that have went way left and in effect has created much more conservatives as a result. Meanwhile, all these people on the far, far left right over here are the ones that agree with things that I think are crazy, such as gender reaffirming surgery, or are people who would look at this in the middle and say, oh, it's just freedom of expression. Let him do whatever he wants to do. Damn near naked up on stage. Who cares if there's little children all around? Put the little children next to the bearded man lady. Of course, it just makes sense. Let them learn about the new pronouns, the she, her, the Ellie, zers, and all of this other stuff. Because all of these biologically born men to compete in women's sports, we're all equal. Now, what's also interesting and is happening at the same time, and let me bring this up as well, is you have a surge, and this is actually on the backbone of red pill content of young men today that are done dating women who have these ideologies, even back here up into 2008, especially down here in this new kind of woke progressive movement. They don't want nothing to do with it. They don't want to see these women walking around half naked, right? They're looking for families now. They're beginning to understand that these ideologies of women are not fit for marriage. These women over here have their own damn issues as well. Let's not act like it's just 100% better over here. But a lot of men are finding themselves right here nowadays as they begin to understand exactly what this is doing to our country. So anyway, shout out again to Stephen A. Smith. Very interesting thoughts. I think that he nailed it in this one. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comment box down below. I'd love to see your thoughts regarding all of this. This is probably my last video that I do on this unless there's any other major updates. Plus, there is a lot of other ridiculousness that I should be covering in this world today. Questions, comments, concerns. Y'all already know what to do. Mediocre tutorials and reviews at gmail.com. Guys, drop me a line in the comment box down below. Last but not least, if you guys want to join my self-development men's community, link down to the description box down below. It's free. Come up, come join the brotherhood, and I will see you soon. Until next time, YouTube. Peace.